Joining us usually at this time each week to preview and review, or usually preview what's going on this particular week and offer her insight, courtesy of betterwellington.org.nz, is Hilary Calvert. And she joins us now. Hilary, I'm sorry, the reason I'm sort of hesitant now is because I'm looking for an email that you sent to me that you wanted to talk about things, and I seem to have got rid of it. So my apologies. Are you there, Hilary? I can't hear Hilary at all.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you now.
You're cutting out a bit.
Okay, so did you hear me say that I managed to lose magnificently the email that you sent to me about all the things that you want to give me your insight on? So my apologies, you're going to have to lead me through this afternoon. Okay. And get her back to you in just a second. There we go.
Hello.
Okay, all right. Now, and while we're sorting that out, on trust, it's not about the facts, says Buzz in the news. That would be the truth. It's about the associated opinion, says Buzz, that is puddled and where the media abuses its role. And another view says, Michael, if the media want to celebrate hitting rock bottom, then I guess we can let them. And now I know, says another view, that study is bullshit of Radio New Zealand is the most trusted. I know, that was my pretty much my view, I have to say as well. Just on that though, while we're getting Hilary back up, the trust survey also showed that the country that trusts its media the most is Finland. Now, over the weekend, I also read my latest Economist, and one of the articles in there was that the happiest people in the world are in Finland. I wonder if there's a correlation between the two, trust in public institutions and happiness. All right, now I can't see Hilary, so I'll let Josh go and work that out, but he's having problems, and so that's fine. You go. All right. Now, what was the other thing about that trust survey? No, that was it. The interesting thing was who was the most untrustworthy. Now, they haven't bothered about us. I have to say, they didn't survey us. But they surveyed, and ironically, it was a small one-man operation in Queenstown called Crux, Crux. Now, I don't know why they surveyed Crux, but Crux, as I said, is a one-man, Peter Newport, ex-BBC, I think. But he's a one-man operation now these days, based in Queenstown. But he was considered the least trustworthy. And I'm thinking, not a lot of New Zealanders would know of a local Queenstown-based online media outlet, would they? So it seemed a really quite unfair question, but there you go. Hilary, are you there now?
Yes. Yes, I'm here now.
Good on you. As I said to you, as explained to you, you sent me what you wanted to talk about, and typical me, lost it. I'm having a Dementia moment. Oh, but by the way, just on that, did you see that there was a survey out today that suggested that a lot of New Zealanders have got dementia and didn't know it? Did you see that?
No. If I have,
Yes.
I've forgotten about it.
See, exactly. There you go. No, apparently there was a survey being conducted by some government agency to determine whether or not people have dementia, and they went around Auckland and Waikato, had a whole series of questions to ask about memory, and discovered that twice as many people failed it as it should have, and have the early onset dementia, have already got dementia, they just don't know it yet and haven't been diagnosed. So I was thinking, I wonder if that's me. Sounds good.
Yep. A lot of us are disabled too, it turns out.
Well, that's it. But wouldn't it be nice to have dementia and not know it, just quietly?
No need to know it, is it?
Well, I just get depressed, wouldn't you? You've got dementia.
Yeah.
So, you just on that though, Winston turned 80 last week. Doesn't have dementia, does he? Or anything like it?
Well, he's nothing like the 80-year-olds around the American landscape who've caused issues recently.
Listen, I don't think Donald Trump's got dementia at all. I don't think he's doing anything other than what he is. He's a radical populist. You and obviously are going to disagree on that. I just think he's doing what he said he was going to do. What to do?
Well, yes and no, because he said it was going to have an effect that I think he's probably wrong about the effect it's going to have. So although he said it was going to do something, he also said and it's going to be beautiful. And
Yes,
I don't know that it is.
Well, isn't it? I mean, he's looking to try and reverse trade imbalances that the United States of America has with other countries, China in particular, but in a number of other countries. He's put the tariffs there essentially for that effect, hasn't he?
Some days he's trying to do that, and other days he's wanting to bully people into signing something or agreeing to something else he wants, or people are desperate to try and make rational sense of what he says, and some days they succeed and most days they don't.
Radical populists who are trying to upset the order will always struggle to try and get their message through to people who are trying to defend the order, won't they?
Well, he can say things quite simply if he wants to, and he does. And they're just either true or they're not true.
You're not a fan, are you, really?
No, not really, because it's the uncertainty that is a problem. If he presented a more rational and consistent front, then we could see whether his propositions turned out. But one day he says something and the next day he says something else. One day he says something and then the White House spokesperson says this is what he meant by it, and the next day he says, I never meant that. So it's the uncertainty and inconsistency trouble me somewhat.
Okay. But the general effect of Donald Trump, I mean, over the weekend, because there's always something happening in that quarter, he exempted, because they obviously hadn't thought it through, they exempted computers and, I think, phones from the Chinese embargo because they realised that so much of their electronics was made in China, and suddenly to put 145% tariff or whatever it was on them was going to just be ridiculous because there's no alternative to that at the moment.
Yes, but when you say they didn't know, they were told in advance, please don't do this to these things. This will be a problem, and why it would be a problem. So it wasn't that no one told them.
Yes. There seems in the background to be an argument amongst Trump's advisors. So clearly Elon Musk would not have agreed with what these policies are, and has been arguing with Donald Trump's chief economic advisor, who seems to be a bit of a rogue economist who loves the tariffs anyhow and thinks that it's important. Nonetheless, the United States, despite all the blandishments of the New York Times and various CNN, etc., there's nothing to suggest that there is any particular effect being felt in the US at the moment, yeah?
Well, I think people are getting very tetchy. A word he used? I can't remember what word he used.
Well, the markets are, yeah.
Yeah, and no one knows what to do with the information they've got, because they can't suddenly start, for instance, manufacturing things in the States, which will take years to set up, if by tomorrow morning he might change his mind about what he... But lightening the mood for a moment, I really like read in the New Zealand initiative, I think over the weekend, and this is quoted as being Landsberg's version about tariffs. And what he says is there are two technologies for producing automobiles in America. One is to manufacture them in Detroit, and the other is to grow them in Iowa. Everyone knows about the first technology. Let me tell you about the second. First, you plant the seeds, which are the raw material from which automobiles are constructed. You wait a few months until wheat appears. Then you harvest the wheat, load it onto ships, and sail the ships into the Pacific Ocean. After a few months, the ships reappear with Toyotas on them.
Yes, I forgive you your cynicism. But having said that, there is another aspect to this that I think is clear and obvious, and that is he's looking to do deals with all these countries and seeking to get policies out of them to redress trade imbalances. The tariff is just a gambit, isn't it? Is it the way you view it, or do you take it a bit more seriously?
He's using it as a bullying tactic, but he's
Well, it's a
finding
negotiating
out from some
technique, or you call it bullying. I call it a negotiating tactic.
No, no, you wouldn't usually call it a negotiating technique when you're
Well, he's
creating
used it
the
his
uncertainty
entire life.
He has perhaps spent his entire life and been for his sins, can I say, bankrupted 4 or 5 times as a result of making some calls and using particular techniques. The problem with the bullying as a technique, and you can call it something else, whatever, is that it's not easy to come back from. It needs to be a last technique to show I'm the biggest and I'm the strongest and I really can push around if I want to. It shouldn't be a first approach because there's not a lot of choices after that. And so they've tried with China, and China's just said, you and whose army, really, haven't they? And he's pulled back.
Well, yeah, but there is no question that the Chinese do have. Yeah, but I don't have a sympathy with your argument, and this is the reason why. And if we're going to use China as the example, this is a country that is manipulated by the Chinese Communist Party. There isn't a free market that applies. It subsidizes on a regular basis. It manipulates its currency. It doesn't play by trading rules internationally. It has utilized those against us in Australia when it feels aggrieved at us and manufactured a variety of false crises, from hygiene problems to bad documentation, whenever we've actually suggested that on foreign affairs issues they might not be acting in the best way possible. They've then inflicted economic pain upon us as a consequence. I'm sorry, but in this contest between the United States and China, I'm certainly not going to be cheering for the Chinese, Hilary.